Jeff here at Lake County's 102.3 XLC. Now, everyone knows that I'm a big wrestling fan, and a lot of great things happening this week here in the area. In Milwaukee on Wednesday, AEW is actually going to be there for Dynamite. They're going to be out at the UW Milwaukee Panther Arena, and there's a match that I'm very much looking forward to. It was kind of set up last week, and this is actually the last Dynamite before the big pay-per-view this Sunday out in Chicago at United Center, Forbidden Door. But on the line with me right now, I have the Murderhawk Monster, Lance Archer. Lance, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. How are you doing, dude?
I'm doing well. Hey, thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us here. So you're going to be part of AEW Dynamite on Wednesday. You are teaming up with the Wizard, Chris Jericho, and you're going against Moxley and Tanahashi. So that is pretty amazing. This is going to be a great thing. What's it going to be like teaming up with a legend like Chris Jericho at the final Dynamite before Forbidden Door?
You know, and all the time that I've been at AEW and, you know, worked at other companies with, and this is our first time doing anything, whether it was tagging, fighting, or anything like that. So actually, it's a pretty cool experience knowing what he's done in the business as a whole, and then as far as AEW is concerned. And when you throw a Wizard and a Murderhawk in a ring together, it's only going to be damaging to whoever steps in there with us. And it's going to be John Moxley and Tanahashi, which we both faced many times.
Yeah, this is like a dream matchup even before the pay-per-view. I mean, this is really going to be great, Lance. Definitely looking forward to it. So you have worked in New Japan for quite some time, almost 9 years now. I think you're right around there, almost a 10-year mark, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I started with New Japan back in 2011. June of 2011 was my debut with that company, and I worked with them for almost 9 years, 8.5 years prior to me signing on with AEW back in early of 2020. So the fact that this relationship exists, you know, I'm probably one of the most experienced in both companies to have worked, like I said, there for almost 9 years, and now with AEW close to 3 years. So it's a really cool experience to see the companies working together. You know, I think it only benefits both companies and worldwide. And the wrestling fans are benefiting the absolute most from this.
Oh, for sure. Now, for those who are not familiar with New Japan, you know, pretty much my introduction to New Japan has kind of come through AEW and everybody coming over and, you know, seeing Suzuki, you know, someone you're very familiar with and you work with, part of the Suzuki Gun. What can those who are not used to New Japan, what can they expect from the matches leading up to Forbidden Door and even the matches at Forbidden Door with some of the New Japan talent? For
sure. Real quick thing, it's Goon, not Gun, Suzuki Goon, which actually means Suzuki's army. No, it's okay. I did the exact same thing when I first went over to Japan, and he told me, he looked at me and goes, that's son. Goon, not Gun. I went, oh, okay. Sorry, my bad.
I could just imagine the look on his face, just him looking at you, looking up to you and telling you that.
Yeah. He's one of those, he's called the murder grandpa for a reason, man. And you don't want to make him too mad. Man, what I think fans can expect, like if you don't know New Japan Pro Wrestling, like our hardcore fan base, which is, we have a very solid hardcore fan base, do know a lot about New Japan because they've seen a lot of the guys that have wrestled there. You know, Kenny Omega has a huge history with New Japan Pro Wrestling, being the first foreigner to ever win the G1 Climax, which is a tournament I'm getting ready to go do again, being a former champion over there and things like that. So we have guys that have extensive history. The Bucks, you know, they're former IWGP tag champs and junior champs and everything over there. So there's a huge history between the two companies. I mean, heck, AEW was announced its existence while those guys were all in Japan. You know, getting ready to do Wrestle Kingdom, which is their big show on January 4th every year. So there's actually been a connection since the very, very beginning between AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. And it's just really now coming together, you know, that Forbidden Door, you know, when Kenta showed up a while back, you know, it was one of the first big moments where there was that cross of promotions and things like that. And it kind of introduced people to the idea that, you know, AEW and New Japan were going to start working with each other, against each other, whatever you want to say. And now we have this pay-per-view event coming up this weekend. And as far as leading up to it, as far as the style is concerned, you know, New Japan wrestlers are called fighters in Japan. Like if you talk to the fans, they call you a fighter. And, you know, it's called a game. It's not called a show and things like that because they consider the guys competitors. And traditionally, Japanese wrestling is called strong style wrestling because the guys go in there and they hit harder, they move faster. The wrestling is the main focus. It's not, I think a lot of wrestling fans see Western style wrestling and, there's a lot of drama to it and things like that. And Japanese wrestling is just very traditionally, it's about the sport. It's just straightforward. It's like, who's the champion? Who's the challenger? Things like that. So when these guys step in the ring, you have to bring your A game and be ready to knock somebody's head off, because they're going to knock your head off if you're not ready.
Wow. Yeah, I can definitely see that. We are here with a Murderhawk Monster, Lance Archer. He's going to be part of AEW Dynamite this Wednesday, teaming up with the Wizard, Chris Jericho, and they are going against Moxley and Tanahashi right before Forbidden Door, which is this upcoming Sunday at the United Center in Chicago. So definitely going to be at that show. Now, you were talking about the different styles and things like that, and the fans, the way that they refer to the fighters and everything too. What type of reactions are different between the New Japan fans and those of the fans in AEW?
You're asking, like, what's the difference between Japanese reactions and American style reactions? Is that kind of the question?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, are there sometimes when I've watched some New Japan, some matches out there, it's almost like they're reacting to like ballet or something very artistic in a way, if that makes any sense.
For sure. And unfortunately, right now, because of the pandemic, which, it's slowly starting to relax, it's taking a bit longer over there. They're actually having supposedly some kind of meeting with the government soon about the idea that fans can cheer again, because they've not been allowed to cheer at all during this whole pandemic that's existed, where they could come to the shows and they could clap and they could make low audible sounds, but they weren't allowed to scream out. They weren't allowed to chant people's names or anything like that. So it's been a long time over there. Like, if you're watching recent New Japan stuff, you're going to watch it and think that they're very quiet, and they're very quiet on purpose, because right now they're not allowed to. But when they were fully allowed to just go crazy and react any way they wanted to, traditionally Japanese wrestling fans are very respectful. I think that's a good way to put it. They'll watch the matches very intently. If the guys are fighting, they're paying attention to the fight, and then when they do something good, they react big to it. One of the very simple things that you don't see in American wrestling fans is, like, a lot of times, like, if a guy's put into some kind of submission hold or some kind of, headlock or anything like that, and if they escape by using the ropes, there isn't much of a reaction to that, unless, they're fighting somebody who's very well known for their submissions and things like that, and it's a huge struggle to get out. In Japan, there's a big respect for the idea that, a wrestler can escape by using the ropes, by using the rules of the fight, the engagement, the match. And they usually applaud that very loudly. If you can work your way to a rope and you can get out of a hold. Like I said, they're very intended on watching the match and seeing the fight and watching each element. And respect in Japan is a huge thing. So, like, they respect the fighters, the wrestlers, and let them do their performance and let them do their fight. And then when they do something big and cool, they react accordingly. One of my greatest memories in Japan, though, was in 2019, I was a part of the G1 Climax. I was wrestling Tanahashi at a place called Korakuen Hall, and Korakuen Hall is about 2,000 people full, and it was extremely loud that night. And at one point, Tanahashi, who's accredited to basically being the savior of New Japan Pro Wrestling at one point, one of the best ever to step in the ring, he and I had a dueling chant going on. The fans were chanting, "Tanahashi, let's go Archer. Tanahashi, let's go Archer." And for me, it was one of the biggest, coolest moments I've had in my entire career, and especially in Japan at that point, because the respect level of fans in Japan to be doing a dueling chant between Tanahashi, one of the greatest ever to step in the ring for New Japan Pro Wrestling or Japanese wrestling as a whole, and to be chanting my name alongside with him was just a cool moment.
Yeah, that's great. So here with the Murderhawk Monster, Lance Archer, going to be part of AEW Dynamite this Wednesday from Milwaukee at the UW Milwaukee Panther Arena. Now, if you're looking for tickets, allelitewrestling.com, click on the events tab, and then they have a link for tickets over there. And then AEW New Japan Forbidden Door this Sunday at United Center in Chicago. So at Forbidden Door, what matches should fans really be excited for at that pay-per-view? Is there a particular match? Yeah, I guess it's really hard to say. I mean, it's such a stacked card. Is there a particular one that really sticks out in your mind as far as ones that fans should really look at?
Yeah, I can't tell you which one specifically. I mean, obviously we're going to crown an interim world champion between Moxley and Tanahashi. Well, let me take that back. They may not make it to the pay-per-view, so we may not be getting an interim champion. Right. Never mind. The Wizard and the Murderhawk are going to put them down for good. Maybe that's what's going to happen. Maybe Chris and I are going to take them down, and then they'll have to put Chris and I will be fighting for the interim championship. Who knows?
Oh, I would love that.
But if they make it, obviously she should be paying attention to that. Mm-hmm. I mean, the tag title match, which I think is between FTR, the ROH champions, Cobb and Oka, who are the IWGP tag champions, and I think it's a winner-take-all situation there. And then you throw in Trent and Rocky Romero in a triple threat. That match is going to be just intensely insane. I don't know exactly what all the other matches are. I don't know if anything else has really been announced. I know that Tony Storm and Thunder Rosa are going to be fighting. And Japanese wrestling traditionally doesn't have women's wrestling on it. And it's not any reason behind it. It's just traditionally they haven't done it. Mm-hmm. Tony Storm has a rich history in Japan, I believe, with Stardom and things like that. So I think there's the connection there. And then obviously Thunder Rosa is the AEW Women's World Champion. So that's going to be a killer match too. I don't know what other matches might be announced just yet, so I'm not going to say anything and get myself in trouble. But those
I understand.
Are three badass matches that everybody should be watching. And I think the whole card, the fact that the show basically sold out with not one match announced shows the interest level from the AEW fans and this combination between New Japan, and the matches that are going to show up on this event are just going to be stellar from top to bottom.
Yeah, it's truly exciting. Now, you mentioned a little bit earlier that you're going to be part of this year's G1 Climax tournament. How do you feel about that, being a part of it as the only AEW wrestler that's been announced?
I mean, it's amazing for me because it's, like you said, my history there, to have that connection between the two companies, to be representing AEW and to be the only one this year representing AEW in a G1 Climax that is, New Japan is celebrating their 50th year in professional wrestling right now. And that's, such an amazingly rich history. The G1 Climax, for anyone who doesn't know, is a tournament that blows pretty much every other tournament that can and does exist in professional wrestling out of the water. It is amazing every single year. And to be a part of it again I'm extremely honored. I was a part of 2019's G1 Climax. A lot of people got to see Will Ospreay and I in a match that was live on TV, on Access TV here in the States in 2019. It was done at the American Airlines Center in Dallas, Texas. It was the first G1 match to ever occur out of Japan. So a lot of people got their first experience with the G1 in 2019. The last couple of years have been muted because of the pandemic and things like that, and their restrictions and so on and so forth. But now the restrictions are starting to lift. They're allowing visas for new wrestlers. And this opened the door for me to possibly go over there and do that and to go represent AEW, but also have the history that I've had with New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think it was a perfect fit. And again, I'm extremely honored and I'm ready to go over there and kick some ass.
Yeah, and I'm sure you will. So lastly, Lance, as we wrap up here, Lance is going to be part, once again, of AEW Dynamite this Wednesday, teaming up with the Wizard Chris Jericho, and they're going against Moxley and Tanahashi. So you mentioned your history in Japan, wrestling in Japan and things like that, going over there. So when you're in Japan, what is your favorite thing to eat?
Man, that is probably one of the biggest things I'm looking forward to when I go back to Japan, is the food, because the food is stellar. It's top notch. They have a barbecue that's called yakiniku, and it's basically Korean style barbecue, but done in a Japanese fashion. It's amazing. Shabu shabu, which is basically like boiling pots, and you dip the meat and then you dip it in a sauce. That's really good. Obviously the sushi, because it's ridiculously fresh and good. But one of my favorite things to eat when I go over there, and a lot of Americans don't like it when I say this, is raw horse. It is one of the best things ever.
Wow. I would imagine it's like really, really lean, right?
Yeah, it's very lean. It's served extremely fresh, extremely cold usually. It's sauced or salted or whatever, and you get like a little, like a ponzu sauce, which is kind of like a soy type sauce, and it's very fresh. It's very clean, and like I said, it's very lean. Like some people would think it'd be very gamey, but it's not.
Okay.
I was extremely surprised the first time I ate it. Was actually kind of tricked into it. And one of our other stablemates at the time, like Shelton Benjamin, used to be in Suzuki-gun, and we were over there in Japan one time, and we were actually in the locker room, and a fan whose family owned a restaurant that served it had delivered it to us, like all wrapped up and ready to go. The Japanese boys were like, "Oh, please try it. It's so good." And we're like, "What is it?" And they're like, "Don't worry, just try. Really good." And we're like, "All right." So we all take a little bit of it, and all of us are like, "Oh, this is not bad. It's pretty good. It seems real fresh." And Shelton finally was like, "Well, what are we eating?" And they were like, raw horse." And he was like, no, horses are pets, not food, no. And I went, "Well, this horse tastes really good," and I kept eating it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think I'd probably have to be tricked into that, too. I'm pretty open to trying most things, but, yeah, if it's something like that, you just have to kind of slip it in there, and if it tastes good, then I'm hooked. Lance, thanks once again. Yeah, thanks so much, man, for all of your time. And truthfully, thank you for all that you do. I mean, you go out there and you perform and you give us some great matches and all that other stuff. Actually, last year when I was at All Out, you stopped by our box to say hi, and it was just like the coolest thing. Yeah, and it was like, "Hey, who was this?" Yeah. Everybody's like, "Hey, did you invite Lance?" I'm like, "I don't know Lance Archer. I wish I did." But, yeah, it was such a pleasant surprise, and you were just a great dude, so... thank you. Yeah. Thank you for all that you do, and best of luck to you in the tournament and everything that goes on in the future. And appreciate your time once again, Lance, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I hope you guys enjoy the show while the Wizard and the Murderhawk kick the crap out of the Ace and the John Moxley.
Absolutely. That's this Wednesday, AEW Dynamite from the UW Milwaukee Panther Arena in Milwaukee. And don't forget this Sunday, AEW New Japan Forbidden Door. It's going to be at United Center in Chicago. And on pay-per-view, it's exclusively in the U.S. via the Bleacher Report app, the BR app. You can check it out there. You don't want to miss it. Thanks again, Lance.
Thank you.